Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Thanks so much for being with us. My name is Madeline Burke. He's John Schmelk. The phone number here is 201-939-4513, and you can find us on Twitter at #GiantsChat. As a reminder, you can also find the archive of this show and our entire podcast network on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and on giants.com/podcasts. It's week 18, the season finale, the Giants and the Eagles. The time has been set, 4:25 Eastern on Sunday at MetLife Stadium. And this one actually matters, John. You know, I think a lot of people were...
All the games matter, Madeline. All the games matter.
Absolutely, absolutely. But, you know, the Giants have a chance to play spoiler a bit here. Of course, the Eagles need a win and a Cowboys loss to win the division. If both the Giants and the Cowboys win their respective games, which will be happening simultaneously on Sunday, the Cowboys, of course, playing the Commanders, then the Cowboys win the tiebreaker and will win the division. But if the Eagles somehow find a way, they'll be the first repeat NFC East champions since 2001-2004, which all those consecutives were also Philadelphia.
Yes, that was to show how long ago it was, that was the Andy Reid, Donovan McNabb Philadelphia Eagles. And that's a stat that we constantly give on this show after the year. So I feel pretty good about the fact we'll be able to continue to give that stat, because I think the odds the Dallas Cowboys lose to the Washington Commanders is probably pretty low.
Probably low. Fun fact, Donovan McNabb was my landlord in college.
What?
But I digress. Yes.
Wait, did he own the building that you...
I went to Arizona State University. Donovan McNabb in the offseason lived in Arizona. He owned some properties, and he owned the condo that I rented. So every month for 2 years, I wrote my rent check to Playas Properties.
Like if your toilet started leaking, did you call McNabb and he had to come and try to fix it? Is that how that worked?
He had like a go-between person, but it was still...
I would have paid to see Donovan McNabb show up in like the plumber's tool belt. He has like the plunger hanging off of his belt. He's got like the cap on. He's ready to go.
Donovan, my water's leaking.
Yes, exactly.
Can you come fix the toilet?
Donovan, we have a rodent problem. Yeah. You come help us out, please, with this? No.
I think we need a new refrigerator. So on that note, we get our Wednesday show started on Big... I know, right? Isn't it weird? It's such a small world. But yeah, it was a long time, 18 years since we've had a repeat champion in the NFC East, which kind of shows that's great, the parity in the division that we've had in recent years.
I wish there was more Giants division wins in that period, but other than that, yes.
Right, exactly. But you know what? Don't have no in your heart. Life is long.
Don't have no in your heart. I haven't heard that one before. That's pretty good, too.
Sometimes I just say things.
Yeah, that's not bad. Is that something you've heard, or would you make that up on the spot?
I'm not sure. I mean, this is something I've said before, but I don't know if it's an original or if it's something I heard somewhere, but it's just something that just feels right, you know? Don't have no in your heart.
Cool. Some news today out of the press conference, which I already closed the page, so I got to go off of memory. Brian Dable did speak to the media earlier today. Matt Parrott will start at right tackle this week. Obviously, Tyree Phillips, poor guy. He has had a really good year as the backup right tackle. I think he really could have solidified himself as the swing tackle next year. And unfortunately, he tore his quad. So hopefully he'll get rehab, come back, he'll be okay if the Giants decide to bring him back. So Matt Parrott will start at right tackle this week. A big start for him. You know, remember, he had the opportunity to start earlier in the year. Then he hurt himself shortly after Evan Neal and Andrew Thomas had their injury issues. Then he had to go on injured reserve, so he lost his opportunity. He'll get that chance this week against Hassan Reddick. So right into the deep end of the pool for him, which will be great.
Right.
Tyrod Taylor, Brian Dable confirms will start this week. And then you have Jason Pinnock, who left the game with the toe injury last week. He will not practice today. And obviously, last game of the year, I'm sure you're not going to try to make these guys force through stuff, so we'll see.
Right.
Then John Michael
Dane Belton, though, did all right, though, in his stead.
Yes.
And has, really. Anytime he's seen the field, he's like...
Hat trick, fumble recovery, 2 picks. Now, fortunate, 2 of those plays, Stafford kind of just airmail balls, but... Look, you got to make the plays when they come to you, right?
Absolutely.
And then, so he'll start at, if Pinnock can't go, he'll start at safety. He's got the toe. And then John Michael Schmitz, which kind of came out of nowhere. He's not practicing today. I think ankle was what the designation was. Ankle/leg is what Paul Dottino tweeted. And then we don't know about Deontay Banks, who obviously missed last week with the shoulder.
Yes.
We'll see if he's able to go this week. And he did a pretty good job against A.J. Brown 2 weeks ago when the Giants played the Eagles. Remember, he had to leave the game at halftime, start of the third quarter, somewhere in that area, with that shoulder injury. So if he can't go, that would obviously be a huge loss against the talented Eagles receiving core, though it looks like Devonta Smith might not play for them. He had to leave the game with what's now being called a mild low ankle sprain and we'll see if he's able to go for the Eagles this week.
Right, and the Eagles, dealing with not just that, but several injuries. Darius Slay, of course, he's been dealing with that knee injury. I would doubt, just like you said, how the Giants are probably not going to push players through. When the Eagles know they're going to the playoffs, are they going to push a guy? Depends on how healthy he is.
I'd be shocked
and if he
needs
needs game reps.
I'm with you.
And also, there's been talk that the Eagles might look at this and say, hey, what are the odds the Cowboys do lose to the Commanders? Low, so maybe we take this opportunity to rest some of our guys. But that really just brings the question of rest versus rest, right? Because if you do that, you get guys out of rhythm and what have you. But that's an Eagles problem.
Yeah, but I do think it's an interesting decision, right?
Yeah.
Because the Eagles desperately need to right their ship right now. They have played not poor football.
They had a 20-6 lead at halftime against the Arizona Cardinals and lost that game.
And I think wasn't it 20-3 at some point in the first half too? I think I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that, but I thought it was look that up, Tom. I thought at one point it was 17 points. Either way,
yeah,
it's a double-digit lead in that game, and obviously the Giant game's going on, so I only have one eye, and I was just kind of looking at the score. I wasn't keeping track of exactly what was happening, so I went back yesterday. I'm like, how the hell did this happen?
Yeah.
So I went back, I looked at the box score. The Cardinals outgained them by 175 yards. They ran for 220 yards against them. James Conner had their way. Time of possession, I think, was 39 minutes to 21 minutes in that game. The Cardinals almost had twice the number of offensive plays. So this was not just like a Cardinals comeback. This was a Cardinals domination of the Eagles. We talked about the Eagles secondary being a problem this year, and that's been pretty consistent. Now they're getting gashed in the run game too.
Right.
It's a big problem.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that they've lost 4 out of the last 5 in the way that they've lost 4 out of the last 5, the Eagles have, and really that Giants game, that second half of the Giants game, the Eagles did not look as sharp as well. The Giants really kind of played to a higher level as well, but when you look at the way Philadelphia is playing heading into the postseason, you don't want to be struggling going into the postseason. You don't want to be limping into it. You want to be playing your best football. And that question of rest versus rest comes up. And I think if as a player, you want to have that routine. Players especially are so used to in the season, Mondays I do this, Tuesdays I do this, Wednesdays are leg day, you have your specific routine. If you're going into the week saying, oh, I know I'm getting a healthy scratch this week, you're a little bit less inclined to be as locked in on the game film. You're a little bit less inclined to be as locked in because you're like, oh, I know I'm not going to see the field. And that takes you out of your rhythm mentally as well. And so it's kind of, I think, if I were making that, I would rather play let's play the first quarter and then rest these guys. And go. Like it's though as a preseason game.
Especially when your team's not playing well.
Right.
Right? Like if you're rolling...
Right.
And you're feeling great about yourself, and you're not gonna have the bye, and you just want the 1 week off. Cool, I get it. That's fine.
Sure.
But the Eagles are trying to find their way here. I don't know what's going on with AJ Brown. That's a whole nother thing, which we're not close enough to it, so I'm not gonna try to guess what's going on there. But whatever it is, it ain't good. So you got that going on. The defense, you want to try to.
Well, and the fact
feel like you're playing good football again, because I'm sure they haven't felt like they've played good football since early November.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the schedule, but it's been a while.
Yeah. Well, the defense you mentioned too, they oddly kind of quietly made that change at coordinator, putting Sean Desai upstairs, Matt Patricia now the defensive coordinator.
Results unchanged.
Yeah. And if anything, and it feels like, okay, you're doing that kind of at a later point in the season. And if anything, they haven't really won much since that happened.
Yeah, November. I mean, they beat in back-to-back weeks. They beat Dallas 28-23, the Chiefs 21-17, and the Bills 37-34. All very close games, by the way, that came down to the wire. But since then, blown out by the 49ers, blown out by the Cowboys, lost to the Seahawks, barely beat the Giants, blew. Dom, what was that? Was it 23 or 26? 14-point game. It was 14-point game.
So 20-6,
and they blew a 14-point lead to the Arizona Cardinals. And with all due respect, it is the Arizona Cardinals they had 4 wins.
They had 4 wins. This is an Eagles team that was 10-1. That was 5-0 to start the season. And now it's just looking like a tale of two teams. Almost.
Yeah, and look, I think at 10-1, and we talked about this heading in, to the Giants game, where their record was probably a little bit inflated, much like the Giants did last year. Their record in close games were phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
You look at their point differential. It was, not even commensurate with the Niners or the Cowboys who are in the same conference, Cowboys same division. So I think we saw some of the cracks, right? You have the house there, and the house still looks great. You have the mansion, but then you get a little closer to the house, and you see there's a little crack in the wall there.
They just covered it up with a paint
yeah, but
splotch
but now it's coming through again, right? And
they got to call the landlord, Donovan McNabb, and see if he can come fix it.
now what you have, now you're having the contractor come in, and he's not dealing with the crack in the paint. Like, he's looking at the foundation and making sure there's not a crack in the foundation. And that requires a lot of work to fix.
Right.
So this is not an aesthetic thing. This is not, all right, to your point, put a new slap of paint on it, we're fine. This is like, there are things that could be seriously wrong here that we need to fix.
Well, and it just shows, too, because the Eagles, they made it to the Super Bowl last season, and then their squad got cherry-picked. And that happens when you have success. But when you lose both your offensive and defensive coordinator...
And not just the squad, to your point, the coaches, right?
Exactly. And there are, many guys will tell you losing a coordinator or changing a coordinator is more impactful than changing a head coach, because that's the person that you're going to. That's the person you're communicating. That's your direct report. That's your boss. That's the person you're having the conversations with, who's saying, hey, this is what I want from you. This is what I expect from you. And that's the person who's kind of setting the tone of that group. And when you're changing that for that group, that changes a lot.
No, it does. And I think we've seen both those coordinators have success where they've gone too, right?
Sure.
I mean, Shane Steichen's been phenomenal in Indianapolis.
Absolutely.
He could have that team in the playoffs depending on what happens this weekend.
Gannon just beat his old squad.
And that's behind the backup quarterback in Indianapolis.
Right.
Jonathan Taylor's out for a lot of the year. Gardner Minshew's had to start. He's still doing it up there. He's been phenomenal. And then to your point, Jonathan Gannon, the Cardinals heading into this year, I think all of us kind of just assumed they would have the worst record in football just based on how they tore the team down last year. Kyler Murray, who knew how long he was going to be out.
Right.
And, there are still some talent deficiencies on Arizona. It's not Jonathan Gannon's fault.
Right.
But that team's played hard every week.
Sure.
Beat the Eagles, beat the Cowboys. They're feisty, right? And they're doing different things. So I think you are seeing, the impact of those losses. And again, I think they lost all their safeties. They lost all their linebackers in the offseason. Reed Blankenship was the only one that was back. And the corners got a year older. Brandon Graham's a year older. Fletcher Cox, who's actually had a pretty darn good year, he's a year older too. But it's just, and even guys like Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey are a year older. You change Miles Sanders out for DeAndre Swift. Now, not DeAndre Swift's not a good running back, but it's still a change, right, that you have to navigate.
Yeah.
So you put all that together, and that's, I think, where the Eagles are. But with that said, this is still, to me, a very important game for the Giants. And I don't believe in this whole, well, you win a game, you carry it into next year, you feel good about yourself. The team changes so much. I'm not going to get into that. But I do think, given the issues this team has had against the Philadelphia Eagles over the past 10 years in terms of beating them, I do think for some of the younger guys in this room to understand what it feels like to beat the Eagles on your home field, I think that's a good thing. So I do think, and again, it's another opportunity to prove yourself for guys against a very talented team, whether it's the cornerbacks against the Eagles wide receivers, the offensive line against the Eagles pass rushers, everybody against Jalen Hurts and DeAndre Swift. How do these guys, in the last game of the year, one more chance to put good stuff on tape, how do you perform against what is still a very talented roster in the Philadelphia Eagles? Right,
exactly. And that, it's not momentum going into next season, but it is momentum going into the offseason, and it's finishing strong.
How about
finishing on a high note. You want to walk out of something feeling good, not feeling bad. And if you come out with a win to end the season, and yes, the season didn't go the way that a lot of these guys had wanted it to, but the last few weeks especially, this team has been competing. This team has not had any quit in them.
No quit.
You've been eliminated from the playoffs. You couldn't tell by looking at the product on the field. These guys are playing their hearts out still and playing for themselves, for their teammates, for all of it. And you want to see that momentum carrying over, because that shows not just the talent that individuals have, but also the culture that is being built in this organization, and the organization that has, had 2 playoff appearances in the last 11 years. It's been a tough stretch, and you want to see not just, okay, we're going to win games and we're going to make it to the playoffs perennially, but we're going to play like we're not quitting, because it takes time to build brick by brick, right? Yep. And so seeing an organization that's running through the tape kind of a thing, and competing, and that's going to bode well too for free agency. I mean, people don't want to go to a place that looks like they're content losing. People want to go to a place that's trying to win, that's trying to accomplish something.
Yeah, and look, it's a game that a lot of the country is going to see at 425. Philadelphia and New York are big markets, so a lot of the Northeast will have that game. I'd probably say most of the country will probably get the Dallas Commanders game just because it's the Cowboys and they're the national team and all that stuff.
Right.
And, they win, they clinch the 2 seed, and they clinch the division, so there's more at stake per se in that game. But, yeah, it's an opportunity against a team that's really kicked your butt for the most part for the last 10 years to go out there and get a win. And that's why I want the Eagles to play their guys.
Right.
Because to me, this is not as meaningful if you win this game and
they
it's
lay
their
down.
backup quarterback. Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like if the Giants would have won the last game, the final game of last season against the Philadelphia Eagles, would that have proven anything to you or anyone else about your ability to beat the Philadelphia Eagles if Jalen Hurts isn't playing and Miles Sanders wasn't playing and Smith and A.J. Brown wasn't playing? It's not the same. It isn't as meaningful. And frankly, you don't get as much out of it because you're not playing the same level of player as an individual. So I hope the Eagles play all their guys.
But when you look at the record, too, the Giants haven't beaten the Eagles in X amount of time. They don't look at, well, this time it was this quarterback and this time it was this player. They just look at the Giants haven't beaten the Eagles in this many years.
Now, unfortunately, they have beaten the Eagles at home. What was it, 2021 they beat the Eagles, I think, on their home field. Winning in Philly has been since 2013 deal.
Sure. But, I mean, in recent years, too, Philly's kind of had the lion's share of the matchup.
Absolutely.
And so, and it reminds me of, like, what was it, a couple years ago when the San Francisco 49ers came to MetLife with their third string everybody, Nick Mullins starting at quarterback, and everyone thought, oh, this is a gimme win for the Giants. And no, it wasn't. The Niners actually dominated that game with their, stretcher squad right there. So sometimes you just want to see a team compete and win, and it doesn't really matter who's fielded, because at the end of the day, these are all professional NFL football players, whether they're starters, backups, what have you.
Yeah, Giants beat the Eagles at home in both 2021 and in 2020. So those are the last 2 wins that they've had at home.
Right.
But I believe, I think after this now 17-3, I think, since 2014, if I recall off the top of my head. I have to go back and double check that.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that's what the deal is. Yeah, you had those 2 wins in 2020 and 2021, and then a win in 2016. Otherwise, the Eagles have won every game. Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Every game against the Giants since the start of the 2014 season. So
but
it's not great.
It's not great, no. But all time, it is relatively equal.
Yeah, I got that here too.
It's 93, 88, and 2, with the Eagles having the slight edge since 1933. So when you look at the course of time over the last nearly 100 years, 93, 88, and 2 ties.
Guys, what are you waiting for, by the way? Get on the line.
Yeah,
201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. Get on the line, folks. Let's talk football with you.
On a Wednesday, as much as I enjoy chit-chatting with John Schmelk, I get to do this all day, every day in the cafeteria and all that kind of stuff. So we want to hear from you. 201-939-4513 is the phone number. First, Giants fans, make sure you go and subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. It features long-form interviews with Giants players, coaches, and front office staff, past and present. Plus, hear from the best analysts covering Big Blue and the NFL. Search for Giants Huddle and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, or simply go to giants.com/podcast. And don't forget, if you are on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star positive review for all of our Giants podcasts. Let us know what you think. Let's head to the phone lines. Vinny in Florida starting us off today on a Wednesday afternoon. Vinny, you're on BBKL with Madeline and Schmelk.
Vinny.
Madeline and Schmelk, Happy New Year to you guys.
You too, bud.
Happy New Year.
Season.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I heard you guys talking about Philadelphia. As Giant fans, we need to hate on them. We absolutely need to hate on them. They're my biggest adversary, even more so than the Cowboys and the Commanders. And, they throw snowballs at Santa Claus. So I am all for them struggling. And just to talk a little bit, because I saw that Cardinal game while I was at a bar with watching the Giants, but I also watched it when I was going. Philadelphia had a 31-28 lead with less than 2 minutes left in the game, and they also blew that.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Good
so
point.
They play, yeah, and they got a big loss. I don't really care about them at all. They're going to make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to last very long in the playoffs. But now focusing on the Giants. I thought the Giants played a great game last week, and I need your kind of answer to my question, because I was watching the game and I thought they played great. I thought Tyrod played great. Saquon had a couple rough instances where he could have claimed the game. But when they went for the field goal at the end, I said to the guy sitting next to me, and I need you guys to say, hey, this is not a. I root for winning. I don't root for tanking at all. I don't root for trying to lose the game. But I said to the guy, I said, we have played so well, and from a draft position standpoint, it behooves us to lose this game versus win it. So if he misses this 54-yard field goal, it's going to be the least painful loss I've ever had, and I'm going to be okay with it. So I'll hang up and ask you guys, did I fail?
So did you manifest that miss, Vinny? Is that what you're saying? Is that what he's asking?
I think so.
All right.
Yeah, I'm asking, was that the right thing to root for, or should I still have rooted for them to make it? Because where they were, it's a better outcome for them to lose that game.
No, it's
based
funny.
on how they played.
I'm happy that you're at peace either way, Vinny.
Yeah,
that's a good thing. We root for joy around here.
Yes, we do. And it's funny. Sean and I were Sean and Hara. We just recorded our Giants Huddle podcast, which is going up today before we started BBK, like we normally do on Wednesdays. And I joked with Sean, for the fans that take that big picture perspective like you, Vinny, and I'm talking from an outside look now, because in the building, there's nothing good about missing that field goal.
Right.
But playing well, almost coming back and upsetting a team that, frankly, is I think people think can make noise in the playoffs. And I think you feel good about that. But at the same time, you missed a kick. You don't ruin your playoff position. You don't ruin your draft position. That's not necessarily the worst thing in the world either. So if you could, write up a script as to the best way to get best of both worlds there, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I said Crosby's not even. There's no way he's on our roster next year.
Correct.
So that kicker's not even a factor in the next year. I thought they played well. I think team still needs to get on a couple of here. I'm not a big fan of going after a quarterback. Look at the bust in quarterback throughout the history of the league in the top 5 quarterbacks. If we can get somebody serviceable in round 2 or 3, or sign a free agent like a Tyrod Taylor, but not as expensive, because if Daniel's going to be our guy, and knock on wood, we're going to have better protection for him, then we can go on to the other positional needs we need. I think we need a number 1 receiver. I think we, should sign a guard that's got some experience. And then, on the defense, we just need to improve the pass rush a little more. And, I think we're heading in the right directions. The developmental guys are right there for us. The Dane Beltons of the world are either going to step up because McKinney leaves, or McKinney will be back. I think the only way we get him back is we franchise him. And the only way we do that is if we sign Saquon the long term before that comes up. But I'm excited about the team next year, and I've hated to say next year for so many years. But based on where this team is heading, I am thinking their talent they're only a little ways away. And one of those things is obviously the offensive line, but I think it can be fixed with healthy Evan Neal and Josh Azudu coming back, and Schmidt's developing in his second year, and then getting a right guard that's veteran.
Ivan.
I hope, because I'm tired of having 5-11, 5-12 seasons. I want to go to the playoffs.
I hear you, Vinny. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, you as well. Look, I think Vinny makes some good points. I think there are spots of this roster where the Giants are in good shape, but at the same time, I think it's also important to look at the team with an honest eye, right? And the correct lens. And the Giants have won 5 games this year, and 4 of those 5 wins came against the teams in the league that have a worse record than the Giants.
Yeah. 1
versus Arizona, 2 versus Washington, and 1 versus New England.
Yeah.
Now, they've beaten the Packers. The Packers could be a playoff team, much like they beat Jacksonville last year, who was the only playoff team they beat last year, right?
Right.
So we talked about all the reasons why the record is what it is. Losing Andrew Thomas, losing Saquon Barkley, all the injuries in the offensive line, all the different lineups, Daniel Jones getting hurt, all that is accurate. So when you look forward and you look ahead in the offseason now, what are the things you have to figure out? 1, you got to figure out the quarterback position. Now, if that's a healthy Daniel Jones, great. But you need to figure out what that is and take whatever path you're going to take, however you want to do it. Because I made this point on the post-game show on Sunday, Madeline. You look at the teams in this league over the past 15 years that have sustained success for the longest period of time. They're the teams that have paired a really good quarterback with a really good coach. Just go down the list, whether it's Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Tomlin, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, Tom Coughlin and Eli Manning, either Mike McCarthy or LaFleur with Aaron Rodgers / Brett Favre. Just go down the list. It's quarterback, coach. And that's what carries consistency for teams moving forward. So that's the most important thing. However you figure it out, you're pretty sure you have the coach here that's going to do that. He's done a nice job. But figure out what the quarterback deal is. If it's Daniel Jones, great. If it's not, figure that part out of it, right?
Yeah.
2, I like the Giants wide receiving core. Darius Slane has been productive here. He's made some nice plays. I think Wanda Robinson as a slot guy and a yards after catch guy has shown really good promise. And again, I don't think he's 100% at this point either, so I think he'll get better. Mm-hmm. And Jalen Hyde has proven to be a good deep threat. But I think all 3 of those guys are more complementary wide receivers than the focus point of your offense. So I do think that, and Darren Waller with the hamstring, you don't know what he's going to give you every week. Yeah. So I do think, and this is really tough to find, I do think the best way forward for this team offensively, and this goes back to the quarterback and helping the quarterback, right, which to me is the most important thing this whole offseason. You want to help the quarterback. You got to try to find a guy that can, even if he's not right away, if you draft him, that can develop into a 1A type of wide receiver that a team, when you're playing them, has to circle the guy in the whiteboard the same way the Giants do with CeeDee Lamb, the Giants do with A.J. Brown, the Giants do with Terry McLaurin.
Somebody who's going to give you a headache game planning for, yes.
They need, the same way the Commanders, the Cowboys, and Eagles have one of those guys. You could argue the Eagles have 2 of those guys with Devonta Smith.
Yeah.
The Giants need one of those guys, all right? And as good as the wide receivers are.
And one of those guys who's consistently there and available.
And healthy. Yes. 1,000% with you. Right.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, I think, it's protection. And look, this has been a thing we've talked about for years, right? And Sean O'Hara talked about it a lot in the Giants Huddle podcast. It'll be up there later today. The guard play has not been good enough this year, right? And Joe Shane also said it when Evan Neal was playing, he needs to play better. Mm-hmm. So can you improve your protection enough, improve your weapons a little bit more, and, again, settle on your quarterback? Daniel Jones, great. If not, figure it out. And, again, if not, would be because of the injury. He's going to be here next year when he's healthy.
Yes.
And I think that offensively is what your main focus is here in the offseason. And whether it's free agency, and it's going to be a combination, let's be honest, with the draft, and then maybe a trade. They traded for Darren Waller last year. Who knows who becomes available? You never know.
Yeah.
That to me, and I'm willing to take a step back on defense. I need to fix the offense this offseason. That's where my focus is.
Well, and you mentioned protecting the quarterback, and whether it's the offensive line or what have you. I mean, the Giants' quarterbacks have been sacked more than any other team in the NFL. The Giants are the only team with 2 quarterbacks who have each been sacked more than 30 times this season. It's not like you can look at it sometimes, and some people will look at the Commanders with Sam Howell and how much he was sacked and say, okay, part of it is on the protection and part of it is on Howell holding the ball or this or that. But when you've got multiple quarterbacks who are getting hit that much, can you really say it's all on this guy, or is it it's systematically you got to protect the position a bit better?
Madeline, I think you make a great point, right? You look at the sacks that Daniel Jones took. They're not that much different than the sacks Tommy DeVito took, and it's not that much different than the 6 times Tyrod Taylor was sacked last week.
Exactly.
So what's the common denominator there? It ain't the quarterback.
Exactly. And when
that's a great point.
And talking about a quarterback too, NFL and CBS posted a really great graphic comparing Daniel Jones and Trevor Lawrence in their first 48 games, and nearly identical numbers, which is kind of impressive. And so for a lot of people who are saying, "Oh, well, we got to move on from this and that, and whatever," no, I mean, you got to build a systematic, successful offense. It's not just one player. It's not just one position. There's a lot to be done. And then, you mentioned, too, the growth this season. One of the big points, of course, I keep coming back to this, is closing the talent gap in the division. And, yes, the Giants have fewer wins this season than they did last year, but they have more wins within the division. They've already had 2 division wins with a chance for a third on Sunday. Last year, they had 1 win and 1 tie within the NFC East. So if that's the area where you're trying to close the ground, because that is really the consistent competition you're facing year in and year out, is the NFC East. So if you're closing that talent gap, if you're winning more games within that division, the rest of the success will come in time, in due time. 201-939-4513 is the phone number. As we go back to the phone lines, Lou in Florida. You're on the line with Schmelk and Madeline. Happy New Year, Lou.
Happy New Year to you, Madeline. John, thank you for taking my call.
Howdy.
Thanks for calling.
I love the big blue. Been a tough year. I am like your previous caller, somewhat optimistic as to how they are doing over the last 2, 3, 4 games. You kind of dovetailing off of what you were saying about what they need to address. I couldn't agree more with you, John. I think this has to be an offensive draft. I know the Giants could probably use a good stout defensive tackle to try to replace Leo. But,
sure.
I think that,
and you can. And by the way, you might have to replace Dory Jackson at corner, and you might want to add a pass rusher depending on what you think of Azeez Ojulari's ability to stay healthy. So there are needs on defense. I'm just prioritizing offense. And again, I don't know what the Giants are going to do. Joe Shane might be like Schmelke or moron. I'm doing it this way, and he'll probably be right. But my approach is just from someone that's covered this team as long as I have. I'm just tired of seeing them score 17 points per game. I don't want to watch it anymore. I got to be honest with you.
And so are we all over the country that follow the Big Blue. My thoughts were just watching some of the college playoff system that you can't come out of it not being so impressed by what those two kids out there in Washington, the number one receiver. I can't pronounce his name, but he's just so good.
Okay, let's work on it. It's Rome Odunze. Rome Odunze. And we will hear his name a lot over the next 4 months. Trust me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if the Giants are picking either 5, 6, 7, 8, somebody like that might be on the board. And I do hope that the Giants and I have full faith in Joe Shane and everyone in the front office that they consider somebody like that, because I do think that we need a stud wide receiver. And there was some speculation that I'm reading that if Penix is around in the second round, that the Giants may even consider Penix Jr.
And is a southpaw too, a lefty.
Yes, I would say it's way too early to attach any player to any team. I mean, we haven't. I mean, it's way too early for that. But there's no reason if you want to draft a quarterback, it would have to be in the first round. This is it's not as deep as you thought it was going to be. But some guys went back to school that you thought might come out. But there are going to be some pretty good players in the second round of this draft.
Right, and Bo Nixon certainly didn't hurt his stock draft.
Nope.
But I do think that we need. In the second round,
Did we lose you, Lou? Oh,
no, there he is.
Yeah, plug and play.
No, look, Lou, 100%. Appreciate the call.
Thanks for calling,
and
Lou.
Look, we're going to talk about draft a lot over the next 4 months. We're going to be at the Combine, Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, all that stuff.
All the bowls.
All the bowls. Too bad they don't do the Hula Bowl anymore. You should do that now in Honolulu. I'd love to go to the Hula Bowl.
Seriously, bring back Hawaii.
I've still not been to Hawaii. That's
what?
No, I have not been. I've never been to Hawaii.
Jonathan, I don't know your middle name, Schmelk.
Oh, you're a West Coast girl, of course.
That's true.
It's like you walking across the street going to Hawaii if you grow up in California.
Yeah, my dad actually lives in Hawaii now, so yeah.
Well, if you have a place to stay when I go out there, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Call up Jim Burke. He'll hook it up and get out there. Yeah.
I looked it up, by the way, while he was on the call. I'm going to ask you. I don't know if you could see what I had up there. Did you see it or no?
No.
Where do you think the Giants rank all time in terms of sacks allowed in a single season as of today?
All time?
All time. Sacks allowed in a single season in NFL history. Where do the Giants sit?
I would say top 5.
You're correct. Can you be more specific?
Let's go. Okay, because I feel like, part of you would want to be like, oh, this is definitely number 1. I'm going to say 3. Number 3 overall.
Close.
I'm gonna throw in 2.
Wow, you already saw him do it.
No, I didn't. That was my answer before.
What happened was
never trust a guy from Staten Island. Yes, number 2.
Number 2.
The Giants sit at 83 sacks allowed.
Okay. Who's number 1?
The 1980, and the only reason I know about this is because I was looking at sack rates, and they were by far the highest team with sack rate earlier in the year. The 1986 Philadelphia Eagles allowed 104 sacks that year.
Ouch.
Yes, ouch is correct. 86, that sounds like a Ron Jaworski year based on when he played. I'll have to check that.
Yeah, because my math was thinking, I was like, it's got to be top 5, but I'm thinking like Andrew Luck Colts years has got to be in there.
Ron Jaworski played 10 games that year, and Randall Cunningham played in 15 games. It looks like they had about equal amount of pass attempts that season. So those guys, Randall Cunningham got sacked. Oh my gosh. Holy in just 209 pass attempts, 66 rush attempts.
Oh my
All right, so that's
yeah,
270.
not-
And by the way, some of those are probably design rushes. So let's just assume they're all scrambles.
Okay.
All right, and let's assume 275 dropbacks.
Okay.
I can't believe this number is right. In 275 dropbacks, he got sacked 72 times. And just as a point of comparison, Ron Jaworski that year had, 245 pass attempts, and he had 13 rushes. So 258 dropbacks, which is only, 20 fewer? He only got sacked 22 times.
So 270 dropbacks, 72 sacks. That's 26% of the time. That's like 1 in 4. You're just getting pummeled.
Oh, my. I had looked at the sack rate before, so that didn't surprise me. I had not looked at the individual players.
Oh.
You talked about how
Or Randall Cunningham.
when all the quarterbacks are getting sacked the same, you have to look at something else.
Right.
Well, this you might want to point at Randall Cunningham a little
Yeah.
bit.
That's a Randall Cunningham
Because
problem.
because if Ron Jaworski had less than a third
Mm-hmm.
of the sacks allowed and almost the same number of dropbacks, that's a quarterback problem.
Yes.
That's not necessarily an offensive line problem. And I'm happy you asked because I
Yeah.
had not looked at that before.
Because sometimes that is true. Like sometimes
That
you'll
is
look at it and be like,
amazing.
wow, they're getting pressure, blame the offensive line. Not always. Sometimes you got to say, hey, look at this is a situation where the quarterback might want to try to get the ball out faster and evade the pressure or run the ball or something like that. But when it's consistent across the board, every quarterback behind that line is getting hit. That's how you know. But wow.
He only
Pour
played
one out for Randall Cunningham.
He only played 6
Send
games.
him an ice pack.
He only played 6 games of previous years. That was kind of like a virtual rookie year for him. So just figuring things out. Anyway, back to the original question. So that Eagle team was won. The 1997 Arizona Cardinals, which now this is a game I'm going to play myself. I believe that's Jake Plummer. It is.
Yeah.
Jake Plummer and Ken Graham combined for that team. They allowed 78 sacks. That year, and wow, they threw the ball a lot. They had 602 pass attempts that year. So the sack rate on there is probably a little bit lower. One that shouldn't surprise you: the 2002 Houston Texans, David Carr, being a absolute pincushion that year, and then tied for 5th. How about that? The 1987 Philadelphia Eagles. Guess who the starting quarterback was that year?
Randall Cunningham.
Bingo! And Randall Cunningham that year got sacked 54 times in 223 pass attempts. So
again, almost the same 1 in 4 percentage.
yeah, I didn't count the runs that time, but you're still above 20% for sure.
That's true.
Which is a ridiculous sack rate. And then tied for them with 72 sacks are the Oakland Raiders from 2006, which again, I'm going to play the game. I bet you that's Jamarcus Russell's rookie year.
Jamarcus Russell's rookie year. I think that was 2005. Wasn't
No, it was not. You're right. That was a combination of Andrew Walter, who I got to be honest, I do not remember Andrew Walter. Do you?
No.
I do not know who Andrew Walter is, and he started 12 games that year. I should know that. And then, Marquez Tuiasosopo from Washington started 2 games. Him I recall, obviously. And then Aaron Brooks, the veteran quarterback that used to be with the Saints.
Okay.
So my guess is
Jamarcus
that
Russell wasn't until 2007.
okay. See, that was a guess for me. I thought, Jamarcus holds the ball a lot. That'd be a guy that would get sacked a lot.
And it was around that time because I remember, where you put yourself, and I'm like, oh, that time in my life, that was when Jamarcus Russell was playing for the Raiders.
So Andrew Walter had a 3-year NFL career. And that was his rookie year in 2006. So you know what you're seeing a lot of young quarterbacks at the top of this most sacked for season list, which should
makes
not
sense.
surprise anybody.
Yeah,
right?
not a surprise.
Anyway,
Not at all.
that was a fun little investigation there. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did.
The more you know. Star goes across the screen. Exactly.
Yes, but I do want to go to Hawaii, though. Hawaii sounds awesome. I've never been.
It's lovely. And you know what? Football fans in Hawaii are rampant. Like, people will get up because the games come on so early there. It's a time difference. It's 6 a.m. game start on Sundays.
What is it from California, Hawaii, time change?
3 hours.
Oh, so it's 6 hours from here.
6 hours
Okay,
from here.
that's not bad.
But Hawaii does not do daylight savings time, so part of the year it's only 5 hours.
Okay. See, I'm learning more about Hawaii.
Right, exactly. But people in Hawaii, big football fans, especially the high school football fans, college football fans, and a lot of Polynesian Pacific Islanders play in the NFL. So there's people walking around supporting their squads. Big football town, and so Bring back football in Hawaii is the
Yes,
message.
correct. Yes, let's do it.
201-939-4513.
At least put the Pro Bowl back there or something.
Right,
Something that I can go to. Come on, let's make this happen.
Speaking of things that sparked joy for us, Wilson in Roxbury is on the line. Wilson.
Speak for yourself, man.
I know. I'm manifesting some good vibes for Wilson.
At least there's somebody that likes me. Thank you, Madeline.
Happy New Year, Wilson. How are you, buddy? We're good.
Wilson, I know Festivus was a couple weeks ago, but I'm sure you got some grievances to air.
Wilson called up the postgame show Sunday. He was very positive when he called the postgame show
love
Sunday.
John, and I wasn't going to call today, but some of the calls you have yesterday about Daniel Jones, Johnny, I had to call.
Wilson, I got to be honest with you. I did not hear the show. I have no idea what was said, so you tell me.
Okay, I'll tell you. First thing, there was some guy. It sounded like a young guy saying that he brought up the stats of Daniel Jones' college career. I mean, if college career stats meant something, Florida, Georgia quarterback will be drafted in the first round every year, and they don't even get drafted. So
now, okay, Wilson, my question is, in what relevance was he giving the Daniel Jones college stats?
He was comparing Daniel Jones' stats to I think it was either Michael Phoenix, the kid from Washington.
College stats don't mean anything, Wilson. I happen to agree with you 100%. They don't mean a darn thing. I'm with you on that. I'm with you.
Right. Another thing I'm going to tell all these young Giants because they all sound young. You know, the call about.
Wilson, let me ask you. I'm curious, Wilson. How old are you?
I'm 54 years old.
Are you really? Well, you have you sound a lot younger than 54, in my opinion, Wilson. So take that as a compliment, my friend.
I appreciate it, Johnny. No, but listen, John, let me ask something.
Yes.
Let me ask. All right. Tyrod Taylor, right? He was with Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
He was with the Chargers, and I think he was with the Texans, right?
And the Raiders and the Browns, I believe, as well.
Oh, my Lord.
He's been with a lot of teams.
About the Raiders. I knew that. All right. And you know what? All those general managers drafted a quarterback in the first round. So all those general managers, they know what they're doing. They saw Tyrod every day in practice, and they saw that Tyrod is what it is. He's a great backup quarterback. He's not a franchise quarterback. So now I got to hear that the offense is more prolific with Tyrod Taylor. The offensive line from now. So when Daniel was getting killed, even though it's not great, it's night and day to when Daniel was getting killed. If Daniel Jones was healthy and the offensive line is playing better, Daniel Jones would have been a much better quarterback. Listen, I like Daniel.
Yeah, Wilson, I will say this real quick. The offensive line is not playing good enough now, but it is playing better than it did the first 7 or 8 games of the year. So I agree with you on that.
60% better, John.
And by the way, I was wrong. Tyrod was not with the Raiders. I apologize. It was the Ravens, the Bills, I did the Browns right, the Chargers, the Texans. So he was with 5 teams before the Giants, but the Raiders were not one of them. That was my fault.
Right, but I'm saying that was towards the end of his career. But at the beginning, with Buffalo and I think
Buffalo, Cleveland, Chargers, Texans were his last 4 stops.
Right, but Buffalo it was the meat of his career. He was still a young guy.
Yep.
He made the playoffs, but the Buffalo decided, all right, we've seen what we have what we know, and it's not enough. That's why they drafted Tyrod Taylor. I mean, Josh Allen.
I mean, Wilson, did somebody call up and say they should re-sign Tyrod to be the starter next year? Is that what the phone call was?
No, no. They basically, just get rid of Daniel Jones and have Tyrod Taylor start. I mean, crazy stuff.
I mean, that's not going to happen.
That's not gonna
happen. Insane.
No.
I mean, Daniel Jones is a 6'4", 230 pounds. He's a big dude, and he's got one of the strongest arms, and he's a top 5 running quarterback. But I'm going to ask you something, and I'll hang up.
Yep.
Johnny, I know they have to address the quarterback situation. I understand that. But if they do, to me, if they draft the quarterback in the first round, it's a huge mistake. But let's say they do. There's no way that they can do that and keep Daniel Jones. It's because, you know what's going to happen, Johnny?
That's exactly what's going to happen, though, Wilson, because
you think so?
Again. Well, I'm not telling you they're definitely drafting a quarterback in the first round. My point is that Daniel Jones is here next year.
Yes,
He's like.
Of course he is, and he should be here for. Listen, I think that Daniel. Listen, you don't know what you got till till it's gone. But let me ask you something. I hang up real because I don't know this answer.
Yeah.
Let's say in a crazy world, right? The Falcons I think the Falcons are a quarterback away, and they say, you know what? They call Joe Shane and they say, Joe, I'll give you a second-round pick, and I'll take Daniel Jones. How does that work, Johnny? Do they pay the whole salary? How does that work?
The Giants. No, I appreciate the call, Wilson. Good stuff.
Thanks
Thank
for
you very
calling,
much.
Wilson. Happy New Year.
So the Giants would have to pay all the guaranteed money that already got paid out. So all the signing bonus money that theoretically the check has already been written, but it's on the salary cap for the next few years, that would all get accelerated into 1 year, and the Giants would have to pay that guaranteed money. The Saints or the Falcons, in this theoretical situation you're putting out there, whatever team that traded for him would pick up his base salary and whatever his yearly numbers would be. So, guys, look, the team's not going to trade a second-round pick for a guy that's coming off a torn ACL. So,
yeah.
I mean, Daniel, again, we could talk about drafting a quarterback this offseason, whether it's in the first round, second round, third round, whatever, adding one in free agency. As Joe Shane said, they're going to have to add somebody. Because Tyrod's a free agent, and they're going to have to figure something out. Daniel Jones is going to be here.
Yeah.
Like, they signed them to that 4-year contract. There was a deal where we broke it down for you right here on the show, where there was a 4-year number, then you had the 2-year number, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel Jones is going to be here next year. And, guys, look, I mean, for example, the Detroit Lions drafted Hendon Hooker last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jared Goff's still the starter.
Yep.
Hendon Hooker was a second-round pick.
And Hendon Hooker, though, coming off an injury and all that kind of stuff, so you knew it wasn't somebody that you're going to draft and expect to start day one anyway. This is a developmental draft pick. He's a late-round draft pick. And had he not been hurt, Hendon Hooker probably would have been one of the top 10 picks in the draft.
Yeah, he was a third-round pick, by the way. Sorry, early third-round pick.
Early third-round pick because he was coming off of that injury. But he's a kind of like stash him for later, build the future kind of a guy.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with not putting the rookie in right away.
Exactly.
Like,
but
if you're
gonna use a top 5, usually if the Giants draft position stays at 5 or better, as it is right now.
Yeah, they're at 5 right now.
Usually when you draft a top 5 pick, that real estate in the NFL draft is a player that you expect to be ready to make an impact on your team day one.
Sure.
You're not taking a top 5 player to play in 2 years, right?
Yes. Generally speaking. Unless you're the Packers, in which case you just sit quarterbacks for 3 years and then you become
But even, Jordan Love was taken, 20th overall?
Right, and Aaron
so
Rodgers was like 19 also. Correct.
Yeah, so like a late first-round pick, that makes more sense. But when you're in the top 5 or
even Patrick Mahomes was 10th or 9th or 11th, whatever he was?
Exactly.
Yeah,
so a later first-round pick, if this is the guy that you're looking to stash or looking for the future, that makes sense. But in that top 5, in that real estate, one of the 5 best players coming into the league this year, you're saying, oh, I want to take you and not make an impact that right away. That feels like, okay.
It's a tough sell.
Yeah, it's a tough sell because when you rank somebody on your draft board in the top 5, that's somebody who you think can make an immediate impact in this league.
And again, guys, look, and we could talk about the draft situation right now real quick, and then we got 2 more calls we got to take. And we started about 5 minutes late, so we can go about 5 minutes late today and make that up for you. But right now, the Giants, to Wilson's pointer and Madeline's pointer, in the 5-hole. They're 5-11. There are 2 other teams that are also 5-11, the Chargers and the Titans. The Titans, I believe, have the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. They do. And the Chargers, I believe, are playing the Kansas City Chiefs. That is correct. And then the Giants obviously have the Eagles. So those are the 3 teams at 5-11. The Giants have the lowest strength of schedule against of that group. So they win the tiebreaker. So that right now, they are 5th. Chargers 6th. Titans are 7th. The only team with 6 wins are the Jets. They take on the New England Patriots this week. So that's a game they could win, which would put them out of that equation for the tie and make Jet fans mad. They could drop them into like 12th in the draft order, which Jet fans would lose their minds.
But they're getting a guy back next year who's an MVP caliber player. And
not a bad player.
Yeah, they'll level up regardless.
I think they'll survive. There are 3 teams that are 4-12. You have the Commanders, who, as we mentioned earlier, are playing the Dallas Cowboys. The Patriots at 4-12 are playing the Jets. And the Arizona Cardinals this week are playing, I guess, the Seattle Seahawks, right? Yes, they are home versus Seattle. So there is a chance the Giants could move up from 5 if one of those teams would happen to win. The Giants right now, and again, this could change based on how many teams win or lose in the final week, the Giants do have the strength of schedule tiebreaker advantage over Washington, New England, and Arizona. So unless that tiebreaker scenario changes based on what the Giants' opponents do in the final week of the year in terms of wins or losses, it gets very complicated. The Giants lose and one or 2 of those teams win, the Giants could move into the top 4 in theory in the draft. Or if they lose, they could move down and be picking 8th instead of picking 5th. So
And one more note too. I just want
gets
to point out the
complicated.
irony that last year the Bears had the number 1 overall pick. They traded it to the Carolina Panthers, who used it to draft Bryce Young, and who went on to be so bad this year that they got the number 1 overall pick, which they had to give back to the Bears.
Do you think that was a good trade for the Bears?
Snip, snap. Honestly, yeah. I mean, it's just like here, delayed gratification.
Yeah,
we get a number 1 overall pick just next year.
Yeah, and you got the pick 1 from them last year, and then you get the next
More
2
draft
for
capital.
them. Oh, and DJ Moore's a pretty good player
And
too,
DJ
by
Moore's
the
a
way.
good player for them and has been great for Justin Fields and has been incredible. Yeah, that worked out incredibly for the Bears.
Yeah, it's one of those deals where that's why trading down is rarely a bad thing.
Because you get more draft capital and you get more draft picks, more shots at it. All right. Giants fans, the 2023 NFL schedule is officially out. Single game tickets are on sale now. Don't miss the Giants at MetLife Stadium this season. Just one more chance. Visit giants.com/tickets to secure your seat Sunday and watch the Giants take on the Eagles. Plus, the Giants official connected TV streaming app Giants TV brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV, and on the Giants mobile app. As we head back to the phone lines, thanks for holding patiently. First time, long time? Not so much. Not even close. Charlie from Maine
Well, I get
has
Wilson
been
and Charlie
holding.
back to back.
Honestly, what did we do
Hey,
to
guys.
deserve the honor? Charlie from Maine, Happy New Year. You're on Big Blue Kickoff with Schmelk and Madeline. How you doing, my
And
friend?
I'm sure Charlie just got
I'm doing
annoyed
good.
by Wilson, so I'm sure Charlie's going to go after Wilson here. Charlie, what do you got?
Hey, John. Hey, Madeline. Hey,
Happy New Year.
actually, I am watching GiantsTV.com on my Roku,
Ooh.
and so I just have to bring that out.
See, Charlie's a big supporter of the squad and all the things we do. We appreciate you, Charlie.
Absolutely.
Hey, and Madeline, I actually lived in Hawaii. I lived on Maui,
Oh, amazing.
in Makawa.
Okay.
So let me guess,
and,
you did something and got banned from the island chain, so you had to move to the mainland. Is that what happened?
And had to move so far. Like, is Maine like the furthest
Yes.
part from Hawaii? Like,
Yeah, they're like,
can you get any farther
you
from
not
Hawaii?
only have to leave Hawaii, you need to stay. Just go as far away as you possibly can.
Yeah, well,
Charlie took the mainland seriously.
Yes.
You know, the Maui Wowie was pretty good. Anyway, this is back in 74, 75. That's when I was there.
Amazing.
Hey, Madeline, I know her playbook is going into 2024. I'd love to have you interview Erin Andrews.
Okay.
I think she's amazing, and she's done a lot in her career, and I think she'd be a great get if you could interview her.
I
So,
love
just
it.
throwing
Charlie
out
putting
there.
the producer hat on.
Charlie,
Would
big
you like
fan
to,
of her playbook, which has been on hiatus for a bit, but we are coming back in the off season, and we will be back and better than ever. And
Would you
know
like to produce the show and book Erin Andrews for us, Charlie? That would be helpful.
Sure, I'd love to ask her a question.
And I'm sure she'll
I
say
love
yes
it.
to
John,
you.
you still haven't got Will Beatty on the huddle yet. I'm still waiting for that.
If I see Will Beatty, he's at a game or he's in the building, I will get Will Beatty on the show for
All
you,
right.
Charlie.
That's good. Hey,
What I need you to do, I need you to email me or tweet me some questions you have for him so I can make sure I ask what you want me to ask. Because I don't want to hear any complaints from you after the interview.
all right. Hey, look, the other thing about Daniel Jones' contract, he should never see the field next year. You know why? Because if he gets injured again, which he always does, we have to pay him $23 million on top of the $84 million that we guaranteed him.
Does he have
So that
does he have
is
injury
exactly-
guarantees in year 3? I haven't looked at what it says on over the
you
cap.
better look because it's there. It's there. I'm telling you. So he should never see the field for a lot of reasons, but I'll drop that for now. But the Philly game, the Philly game. Look, we don't need to win this game. We should be playing players that we need to see where they're at. Beavers never even has got on the field yet. He's finally on the 53. Play him. You have that safety Owens, who has never gotten a shirt. He's been on the 53. Play him. You know, we got to start Riley and Davidson. Play him. We don't need Dex with a bad hammy still playing in this game. And I know Dable says we got to win the game. No, you don't. It doesn't matter if you win this game or not. In the Philly's going to destroy us because they're pretty mad for losing against
Charlie,
Arizona.
I don't know if Philly's capable of destroying anybody right now. We all thought they would want to destroy the Giants.
except for their own team.
Yeah, we all thought they'd want to destroy the
How many
Giants
points
2
did-
weeks
how many
ago. And
points- How many points did Philly get on us? 33, right?
In the first
you
game,
think we're
yeah.
going to score 33 points?
Well-
We haven't scored. Throw out that Arizona game. We haven't even gotten close.
Well,
to
I
getting
don't.
to 30.
I don't know if Philly's going to put up 33 this week.
I do. I think they're going to put up 38.
No.
And I think we might get 20. And that's going to be it, 38 to 20. So all I'm saying is this season has been a disaster, and I predicted it was going to be a disaster. And if you look at what my record, I said the Giants would be 6-11, and I'm hoping they're going to be 5-12. So look, don't win this game. Get a better draft pick. Get your quarterback finally. Forget Goma Jones. He's done. The era's over. Let's move on. He's too injured. He's mediocre, tapioca at best. And I love you guys. You guys, I'll be listening and calling in again.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie. I like how Charlie, much like we hope the Giants will, ended on a high note with, you know what, mediocre tapioca. But you know what, I love you guys. And so I appreciate the,
Well, at least Charlie admitted he's now rooting for the team to lose.
you know,
We have suspected that for some time.
honesty is always welcome here on Big Blue Kickoff.
He is now rooting for the team to lose. Congratulations, Charlie.
Congratulations.
You have met the stereotype that's been made of you online, and you've hit it. You hit it. I mean, if that's what you were going for,
Nailed it.
nailed it.
Nailed it. Nailed it. Charlie from Maine never disappoints. All right, we got our final caller as we go back to the phone lines. Guy in Florida. Guy, you're on BBKL with Schmelk and Madeline.
Good afternoon, John and Madeline. How are you?
Hi, guy.
Good. How are you?
Good. Based on what Charlie was saying, just to piggyback off it, I think the key ingredient after the conclusion of this miserable season is evaluation of the coaches, especially Mr. Daboll. Do we honestly think, if we assume things will happen a certain way, that if he assumes the Andy Reid role of offensive coordinator responsibilities next year, that he will be able to pull it off with all the miscues that has occurred on the field with execution on the offensive side?
Why do you want him? I mean, first of all, I'm pretty sure that, oh gosh, the former head coach of the Bears that went back to Kansas City and is basically, I'm sorry? Yeah, isn't Matt Nagy?
Swaggy Nagy.
Isn't Matt Nagy officially the Chiefs' offensive coordinator? Am I wrong about that? He is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what about Daboll assuming the responsibilities of offensive coordinator?
I would.
So
I
you
would
mean
be against.
play calling?
Yeah, I mean, I would be against that. I think. Why?
Only one.
Why do you want that to happen?
Everything else has failed this year. It's obvious, and he's the responsible to bring forward the Giants to the new era.
Do you think the failures have to do with play calling, or do you think the failures have to do with the fact that they can't block anybody and they've had 3 starting quarterbacks this year?
And a lack of consistency and continuity has to affect the communication at some point.
Well, it has to start with the offensive game plan, because if he approves it and they still follow it up play by play as we've seen throughout the year, that something has to change.
Well, sure, it's not always the plan, too. Sometimes, I mean, even you heard last week Tyrod Taylor talking about the execution. And a lot of guys, the execution wasn't up to par. The plan was fine, but the execution didn't.
Guy, I'm going to give you 5 plays in that last week. And, Manuel, I apologize for interrupting. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Jalen Hyatt wide open down the right sideline, ball goes to his arms. Right play call, bad execution.
Right.
2-point conversion to win the game or give yourself the lead late. Saquon Barkley's wide open. If he completes a 3-yard pass, Giants take the lead.
Plus, there were 2 other options on that play, which also would have been viable.
You get the ball back, even after that miscue. Saquon Barkley wide open on an arrow route. The ball hits him. If it was a spear, it would have killed him. All right, to quote the great Howard Cross. Ball goes off his hands and he drops it. That could have been a big play. You want to go back to the Darren Waller over route?
Yeah.
That would have been a big 3rd down conversion. If that's not thrown 6 inches too far in front of him, that's a 20-yard gain. You mentioned the Sterling Shepard drop on the little slant. I mean, how about the deep post to Hyatt that got called back if Daniel Bellinger picks up a blitz better?
Yeah.
Those are the right play calls. Guys are open. They're not executed properly by the players. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying?
There's no fault then in Daboll and what has happened to you. We see it on TV.
No.
Here in Florida. Many times, you saying execution, fine, but sometimes the play call design, you just question your question.
No, look, in a season like this, guy, no one escapes blame. And I'm sure and Brian Daboll said in the press conference, right, there are some plays that he would like to have back here or there. And that happens. No coach is going to be perfect in that regard. But when I evaluate a team, I always start with the players. Because the players are the guys that, rightly so, make all the money. And they're the most important thing to any team, right? You have to have better players to out-execute your opponent. And when the Giants were hamstrung as much as they were earlier this year with the players they had on the field because of a lot of the injuries they had, I don't care who the coach is. I mean, just look at Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick's an excellent coach, right?
Right.
What have the New England Patriots look like without Tom Brady? It's not the same.
If you're in the car and you're in charge of giving directions and your friend is driving and you say, okay, we're going to take a left up here, and then they keep going straight because, oh, sorry, I missed the turn. Is that you giving bad directions, or is it them being, oh, sorry, I know I was supposed to take a left there, but I missed it. My bad.
I think, Guy, our point here is that if you're trying to solve the problem and make the Giants better, I don't think giving Brian Daboll more responsibility and making his job tougher by taking away his offensive coordinator and making him call plays too, I don't understand how that gets you closer to making the team better. Like, how does that help?
Does he have faith in his current offensive coordinator, honestly?
I mean, we'll find out after the year. It sure seems that way.
Yeah.
He says the public speak, but realistically, we'll see at the end of the year.
I mean, he hired him.
Hired him and swayed him to stay.
Yeah, I remember people were looking to hire Mike Kafka away last year, and Brian Daboll said, "No, dude, stay. And we'll take care of it."
Maybe this year things will change, and then something. Who else will become? Change that quarterback coach is going to become the offensive coordinator, just so they retain Daboll's system.
Well, go, Guy.
We're going to have to watch it.
Maybe look, but Guy, you look. I don't know what's going to happen after the year with the coaching staff. Nobody does. That's held very tightly. Everybody could be back for all I know, or there could be changes. I have no idea. You could be right, but there's. I mean, I don't. When I'm trying to fix this team, that's not the place I go to say that. The reason they are 5-11 this year is because of Mike Kafka. I just don't think that's anywhere near being factual.
I blame Daboll because of the overall evaluation of the players they had from the beginning of the year and what they thought they had, and they had a youth movement going on this year because they had to bring in the rookies and the second-year players who were injured last year to start. They just didn't evaluate them properly. I'm just wondering who's going to do the evaluating for next year. Are they going to realize their mistakes and take a different approach? I hope they do.
Who are the guys they evaluated incorrectly, Guy?
The offensive line. How about those 10 guys they started with at the beginning of the year? You think, honestly, those were the best players they could have had?
Which one of the 16 guys that got injured are the guys they evaluated incorrectly? No, I want names. Who are the guys they evaluated incorrectly?
Lewinsky was not the greatest guard they had, but they had to keep him for contract.
Okay.
He kept moving.
You mentioned young second-year guys. Galinsky's a free agent, and he's almost 30 years old. But, okay, who else is there?
The two young guys they have from North Carolina State they had 2 years ago.
UNC.
McKeithen and Azudu.
Okay. McKeithen, yeah.
Those two, they were both injured last year. They had to come in this year and try to play. They put too much on them to think that one or two of those gentlemen could start to plug and play this year. Those are just the obvious ones. And Mr. O'Neal, the right tackle, I don't know what to say with him. I don't know if they really understood his limitations and tried to help him, or they didn't help him.
Of course they tried.
And also, too, he has been significantly injured.
I mean,
thanks so much for calling, Guy.
They try to help all their players. I mean, come on. No, look. And if you want to talk about player evaluation, and then you look at the front office, you don't look at the coaches.
And if you look at player evaluation, it's it's a lot about evaluating and watching, and it's also a little bit of chance too, because people don't always translate from A to B. I mean, you look at draft analysis year in and year out. There's so many misses, but we don't go back and evaluate the misses. We just keep moving forward, right? There's people that we expect to be here that are here. There's people we expect to be here that are here.
Yeah, and look, Guy, did the offensive line not play as well as they thought they would before the guys got hurt at the start of the year? Absolutely. No one's arguing that. You're 100% right. No question about it.
Yeah.
But, they also had zero opportunity to grow together as a group and improve over the course of the year.
Exactly.
McKeithen was coming off an ACL. Then Josh Azudu got hurt. I mean, I got to look at what week he got hurt, but I think it was in September, right? If I'm not mistaken.
It was
really early. I have to double check when he actually did get hurt. But
Andrew Thomas was in and out.
Yeah, and then Evan Neal got hurt too. I mean, it was a mess. And John Michael Schmitz missed a month too.
Justin Pugh came out of retirement for it.
Off the couch for the people that didn't hear.
Straight off the couch. Did you know that?
No. But look, no one's saying that things went right this year. Everyone did a great job. But you see, you're a little all over the place there in terms of what you're trying to fix.
Right. I mean, you need to fix a lot of things, and that is agreed upon. All right, it's been a show for us, but before we wrap it up, just want to give a quick congratulations. Gunnar Olszewski named NFC Special Teams Player of the Week after that
Nice.
94-yard touchdown on the punt return. It was the Giants' longest punt return in 95 years. It was September 30th, 1928, that Al Youngblood scored on a 95-yard return in a season-opening road game against the Pottsville Maroons. So,
Do you have his GPS speed on that punt return?
Yeah,
were they tracking that in 1925?
1928 GPS data is a little bit skewed, but I'm sure we could find that. But yeah, so he's 1 yard shy of a record set in 1928 by Al Youngblood. So congratulations, Gunnar Olszewski, NFC Special Teams Player of the Week, and of course a quick happy birthday to one Eli Manning.
And what could have been the game-winning punt return for a touchdown?
Could have been. You know, the missed PATs always come into play. Although we missed one, they missed two. Giants missed a PAT, the Rams missed two PATs, you know.
That was a tough kicking situation last week in that building. It was not easy.
It was reminiscent of what was it, that Packers Bengals when they kept missing field goals down the street. You remember that game from a couple years ago? I don't know. Anyways, all right. On that note, we leave you. Hat tip to the special teams players, and thanks for listening to today's episode of Big Blue Kickoff Live, part of the Giants podcast platform everywhere and giants.com/podcast. Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Giants. For John Schmelk, I'm Madeline Burke. We'll see you next time.